Hello everybody and welcome to my guide for the boss mode conquest in Diablo 3. This conquest requires that you kill all of the bosses on Torment 10 within 20 minutes of the start of the game in adventure mode. And that may sound kind of complicated, but as it turns out, it's way easier than you might think. The footage you're seeing in the background is from our attempt at it in Season 15, and it definitely wasn't optimized. I died a couple times, we didn't have the right skill setup to begin with, we had to change things out, and yet we still did it with about 5 minutes remaining with only 2 of us, so it's not that difficult, it's just a matter of knowing how to do it. Before we get started, there are some things that you need to know, which of course the game has to be set to Torment 10 or higher on adventure mode. You could set it to Torment 11, 12, or 13 if you really wanted to, if you're feeling confident, but just do it on Torment 10, it's going to be easier. You're also going to need another person to do this with, it'll make it much easier. You could do it solo, especially if you have a fast build. We'll talk about that in a minute. It's entirely possible to do it by yourself, but it's going to be much easier if you have at least one other person joining you. On top of that, it is a requirement that you have to be at the boss and be there for the kill to get credit for it. So if you're going for the conquest, you have to be there for all of the boss kills. If you're not going for the boss kills, if you don't want the conquest, or maybe you're just trading off who gets the conquest, one of you could go to the other bosses while the other person is killing, or vice versa. You know, you could have maybe one out of a 4-person group going to all the bosses while people are killing the bosses. So there is ways to finagle it, but there's really no reason to. Just be there for the boss kills. You'll have plenty of time. And finally, there is a trick that you can use with your portals that will significantly increase your speed. So stick with me as I try to explain this, but most people know you can use your town portal, and when you get back to town, it'll have a little portal there that will take you back to wherever you town portaled from, right? This is nothing new. People understand this about Diablo, but something that a lot of people don't understand is that once you have that portal set up, so you go back to town, and you can, go back to wherever you were previously, as long as you don't go through that portal, or you use your town portal again, that portal will remain. So what you can do is you can, say your friend is at a boss and they're like, hey, I'm at Adria, I'm going to start it. And you say, okay, give me a second. You town portal back to town, and then your, portal remains there. You accept the boss fight once you're in town, and now you're at the boss. So the way that you keep that portal back to where you were before is, instead of town portaling back from the boss to town, you open up your map and you use the map to travel back to town. By doing this, you preserve that portal that you had. So essentially, you go back to town, you have your portal, your friend starts the boss fight, you go into the boss fight, you kill the boss, you use your map to teleport back to town instead of your town portal, and your portal from before will remain there, taking you back to wherever you were. So that is a really clever little way to save your progress, because some of these bosses are kind of hard to get to, like the Butcher, Adria. Maltho used to be a lot harder than he is now. He's much easier now. You just go backwards on the map as opposed to forward, and you go through the little portals. But you also have bosses like Urzael, right, that are kind of hard to get to. So some of these require you to be running and then understand that, your friend is also trying to find bosses at the same time. And once they get to it, you use your town portal to go back to town, you accept the boss fight, you kill the boss, you use your map to go back to town, and then you go back through your portal and remain where you were before. It's an easy way to save progress. So what's the trick to doing this conquest? As I said before, you have to use the portal trick. Everybody goes to a different boss. So we start with Act 5 and we work our way backwards. We go Act 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We kill all of the bosses in each act as we go. Act 1 is one of the easiest ones to get to all of the bosses, and the bosses die very quickly, where Act 5 tends to have one of the longer runs to each of the bosses, like Malthael or Adria or Urzael. But at the end of the day, when you get to Act 1, things will be going a lot faster. So you'll spend most of your time in Act 5, which is why we start with it, and you spend most of your time kind of getting to the bosses. Everybody splits up, runs to the boss. Once they get to the boss, they start it. Everybody says, cool, we're ready, so we go back to town. It saves their position on wherever they were running to any of the different bosses, right? And once they're back in town, they accept the boss Everybody kills it. They go back to town using the map instead of their town portal. And then they go back through their portal and continue running to their boss. And this continues rinse and repeat until all of the bosses are dead. Now, obviously, some bosses you're going to get to immediately, like Sultan Cool or Belial. These bosses, it's basically someone's running there and starting it immediately, and then everybody accepts it. So when you know someone's running to that one and you're about to start running to, I don't know, Diablo, for instance, you really probably should just wait, because it's going to take you more time to clear the mobs off of you to go back to town in order to do that. If you really want to speed this up and you're really concerned about your speed, especially if you're using the portal trick, one of the things that's slowing you down a lot is killing mobs enough for you to then go back to town, right? So that you're not being interrupted. You could use homing pads, which are a pair of shoulders that will help with this. You just immediately go back as soon as you need to, and you don't have to worry about killing mobs. That can help you out quite a bit with this trick. However, with that being said, it's not really necessary. We did our run with 2 people with 5 minutes remaining. The key that I believe is having a person who is set up to kill bosses really quickly. In this case, during Season 15, the Rathma's Necromancer is really good at this, but each class has different builds that they're able to use to kill bosses very quickly. As long as you have 1 or 2 people that can just decimate the boss in a couple of seconds, or maybe even longer than that, you don't have to be one-shotting the boss, but as long as you have someone who can kill the boss very quickly, everybody else doesn't really need to worry about boss damage. They just need to worry about speed and getting to the bosses as quickly as possible. Now, each class has their own movement speed stuff that you should be using. You should be using Steed Charge on Crusader, Leap on your Barbarian, Dashing Strike on Monks, Teleport on Wizards, Vault on a Demon Hunter, Blood Rush on the Necromancer, and Spirit Walk on the Witch Doctor. Each of these classes also have kind of items that will increase your speed based on, those movement abilities. So for example, the Necromancer has a pair of boots that increases their movement speed by 100% after they use Blood Rush, which is crazy. It speeds it up quite a bit. Monks using Dashing Strike can get to one place to another very, very quickly, and it's just a matter of having your class set up to be able to run through stuff as quickly as possible. You're not stopping and killing mobs along the way unless you're portaling back to town, so you don't have to really worry about killing things as much as moving very quickly. If you are concerned about your speed, you're feeling like I can't quite get fast enough for this, another option is to use a Boon of the Hoarder legendary gem at level 25, which means anytime you pick up gold, you'll get a nice burst of speed, which will help out significantly. And if you have a ring like Avarice Band, that will help out picking up gold, but this means that you are going to have to kind of kill mobs along the way, and it's really just a matter of, is this going to slow me down too much, or is it going to be worth having the Boon of the Hoarder instead of, just passing through everything and not having to worry about killing mobs? But once you get into the habit of everybody running to their bosses, starting the boss fight, people who aren't there yet teleport back, go to the boss fight, kill it, use your map to teleport back, and then use your portal to put you back to where you were, you'll kind of find that things happen very quickly. And there may even be points where you're waiting for a couple bosses to die before you can even start your boss fight, even though you're at the door for it, because it's just a matter of, people are getting there before you, or maybe you're kind of stepping on each other's toes. It just happens. It's something that you kind of have to deal with. But this is the quickest way to do it, which is using the portal trick and having people who can kill the bosses really quickly and having people who can run to the bosses really quickly as well. If you have any additional tips or tricks, leave them in the comments below, because it's all very helpful, and anybody who is, really close to getting boss mode but can't quite do it may find one of your tips incredibly helpful and may be the thing that pushes them over the edge for getting it. But I'm going to let the rest of our attempt play out so you can kind of see how we end up doing it back and forth, with me and this other person running. Again, you could do it solo. It's just a matter of having a quick enough build to get to the individual bosses. You can find all those kind of builds on places like Diablo Fans, for instance, and you should be able to get this done within the 20 minutes, as long as you're able to kill bosses very quickly. But with all of that being said, we shall see you guys next time.
here?
Interesting opponent. I need essence. Fear the end. I must wait longer. You will make a fine corpse. Give it more time. I need to go back. I need essence.